tell you to come. Oh my God, they're all shooting back and forth.
Eu vivo nos Estados Unidos há mais de 20 anos e me sinto muito seguro aqui. O número de homicídios aqui em Nova York e em outras cidades americanas é muitas vezes menor do que no Rio ou em São Paulo. Mas existe esse estranho paradoxo, difícil de entender até de traduzir, o que os americanos chamam de mass shootings, esses tiroteios em massa.
Look at that, they're shooting back and forth. Look at this.
Quando um atirador ataca um lugar público e atira a esmo para fazer o maior número de vítimas. Aqui em Nova York é muito difícil ter uma arma, as leis de controle são muito rigorosas. Não conheço ninguém que tenha. Mas em outros lugares é fácil comprar uma arma. Acaba sendo o país com o maior número de armas de fogo em circulação. 300 milhões, uma para cada habitante, e algumas vão parar em mãos erradas. São centenas desses mass shootings a cada ano, uma epidemia. E é assim como uma epidemia que essa história é tratada por um dos maiores experts no assunto, o economista David Hemenway, que eu fui entrevistar na Universidade de Harvard. Para ele, é um problema de saúde pública e por isso pode ser resolvido, assim como se fez cortando o uso do cigarro, reduzindo muito o número de mortos no trânsito, e por isso ele se diz otimista. Mas a cada novo massacre, a gente volta a perguntar por quê e até quando?
Yeah, I have to tell you, well, Brazil is very different from the U.S., but when I researched the issue, I found a lot of numbers, recent statistics for the U.S. that in Brazil we don't have.
We have a very good data system across all deaths. So the vital statistics in the United States is excellent. It sort of says how many people we know, their age and gender, who die from cancer and heart disease and drownings and so forth. But it doesn't tell you anything about the circumstances. All you know is who died and what they died of. And what's really important for prevention is to figure out what were the circumstances so you can do something about it.
I would like the viewers to get the public health concept that it's not about blaming. Prevention is about changing the environment.
That's right. It's exactly right. And I think blaming often makes it hard to do anything because you just blame, oh, it's their fault, we don't have to do anything. Yeah. And what we're trying to do is forget blame, just try to prevent. Step back and think, how could you have prevented these things from happening?
It's like re-engineering.
That's right. And a lot of times that's the answer. A lot of times the way to make things better is to make the system. It could be an engineering system. In medicine, it's often make it very hard to give the wrong medication. Now we make it very easy. Yeah. And so not surprisingly, people give the wrong medication. If you make it almost impossible, very few people.
Nos Estados Unidos, único país desenvolvido com um alto número de vítimas, 85 por dia, a opinião pública exigiu soluções. Depois da tragédia da escola de Newtown, onde 20 crianças e 6 adultos foram mortos a tiros em dezembro por um jovem que tinha livre acesso a armas de fogo.
When this last massacre happened in Newtown, there were two extremes as usual. One side wants to ban all firearms, and the other side wants to arm everybody because everybody will be safe if everybody has a gun. Right. So, and you are in the middle, right? Yeah. So, because you have the public health approach. That's so right. Tell us what the public health approach can do in this issue.
Right. So I'm going to give a long-winded answer, if that's okay, because people, I think, understand analogies. And a good analogy, because I've written this book about success stories, and there's lots of success stories in public health, so we're very optimistic. And the analogy I want to draw is with cars, because in the United States we have lots of cars, and over time we've sort of learned to live with cars, or at least done much better. We also have lots of guns. We're going to have lots of guns. We have now a Second Amendment, which has been interpreted as saying you have a right to have a gun in your home. So we're going to have lots of guns, and a lot of people like guns. And so we are currently dying with our guns. We want to learn to live with our guns. The success in motor vehicles was this. In the 1950s, when I was a youngster, we were told that it was all the driver's fault. Everything was the drivers were stupid and they were careless and they were drunk and so forth, and that if only we had good drivers. Basically, the automobile manufacturers were saying what the gun lobby says now: cars don't kill people, people kill people. And so the notion was, oh, if we only could educate the drivers training, and we could enforce the traffic laws.
If people are more responsible, they'll be safer.
Everything would be fine. Yeah. So the notion in public health is, let's create a system where it's hard to make mistakes. And we want to sort of make the same approach about guns. We're going to have lots of guns. What can we do as a society? What can manufacturers do? What can distributors do? What can gun owners do to make a real difference if we're going to have lots of guns? And then how can we change social norms? And there's lots and lots of things we can do, all of which are supported overwhelmingly by the American public, by gun owners, and even by most NRA members.
And you talked about success.
Yes.
Here in Boston,
Yes.
You call it the Boston Miracle,
That's right?
What was that in the 90s?
I would say one of the things we did was we really had a very smart enforcement policy. And there, what was done was, it's a very different kind of policing. It was announcing ahead of time to people, here's what exactly we're going to do, here's where we're going to be, which usually police would never do. It was enforcing laws against groups rather than individuals. And it was using what I would call the Al Capone strategy. Al Capone was this gangster in the 30s. And the way we got him was not for all the terrible things he did. We got him on tax evasion and put him in jail for long periods of time. So what was done very quickly was all law enforcement got together and said, we're all going to work together. One of the things which was done was say, we're going to have 5% of our police focusing on gun violence among gangs. And everyone, let's bring all the gangs together. Let's bring their grandmothers and everybody in the community together and explain this is the new rules of the game.
So the key was community work?
It was community and policing together.
Involving the community.
And getting the community to trust the police and the police to trust the community. And what the new rules basically said was, we're going to have 95% of our police do the same stuff we always do. But these 5% of our police, the creme de la creme, is just going to wait until one gang starts shooting. Because we're not against gangs, we're against violence, but we are really against shooting. The shooting has to stop. And so we know where all the gangs are, we've mapped all the gangs, we know who's in the gangs. If one gang decides to shoot, whoever wants to shoot first, we're going to get them. And here's what we're going to do. All this 5% of the is going to be just right on top of them. And that was a very effective strategy. It was sort of, instead of just saying we're going after everybody, whatever, it was really focusing attention on who the next group was. And sort of starting in some sense on square one, where everyone had equal chance of saying, come after us, and nobody wanted to do that after the first gang. And it was very, very, very effective. And I think it's innovative thinking that really matters. And it's, public health is much bigger than criminal justice, but it involves criminal justice is sort of part of the system, and so is the community. And if the police can get the community to be on their side, I mean, one of the big problems off and on in Boston is that people don't like to snitch. You're snitching, so you don't tell it. But if you trust really the police and you feel like the police are doing a good job rather than as the enemy, it makes all the difference.
I know people who own guns because they say that they feel safer having a gun at home.
Yes.
What does research show about that?
Yeah. So the research shows that it's certainly possible for some people in some situations to be safer. I mean, if somebody's stalking you, you might be safer with a gun. Who knows? But for the average person, for the average family, the evidence shows that you're much less safe with a gun. Why is that? Because a gun is very lethal. It's very dangerous. And what a gun in the house does is it increases the risk, of course, of unintentional gun shooting. And there's some deaths, but there's a lot of people shot unintentionally who don't die. The evidence is overwhelming. It increases the risk in the United States of suicide. Because if the gun is there and you use the gun, the case fatality rate's over 90%. If you use the common method of taking 100 pills, the case fatality rate is 2 or 3%. So you basically save the person if there's no gun. And most people aren't careful planners. They haven't planned for weeks. They just, oh, I feel terrible. You know, I've been feeling bad, but now I can't do anything. I have to kill myself instead. And it also, we know the evidence is pretty strong that increases the risk of the woman dying in the home in any kind of situation where there's a battering situation or intimate partner violence. The reason it's so dangerous is because for most people, 99.99999% of the time, you can't use the gun appropriately in terms of public health. You can go shooting or hunting, but in terms of safety, all you can do is use the gun inappropriately. There may be one chance, probably zero in your lifetime, but there may be one chance you could use the gun appropriately. And there, the evidence indicates that you're probably not necessarily better off with a gun. You're equally well off probably with a baseball bat or running away. Manufacturers could do lots of things that would reduce the violence and the homicide. One thing is serial numbers. We don't have unique serial numbers on our guns. The serial numbers can easily be obliterated, and so it's hard to. We can make it so we tell the manufacturers that if you're going to produce a gun, you have to have a unique serial number, and it can't be obliterated. It's the 21st century. We can have guns in which there's basically what's called ballistic fingerprinting. This is required in California. So you shoot the bullet, we get the bullet, we have the gun. Not only can we say the bullet is consistent with coming with this type of gun, it's from this exact gun. And that may make movies, TV shows like CSI less interesting because, but we can do it. There's just no question. We can make guns which are what's called smart guns. A lot of times, the wrong people get guns because they steal guns. It's estimated that maybe 500,000 guns a year are stolen in the United States and get into criminal hands. When I was young and I had a car, someone stole my car radio. Then after a while, I got a car and on the window it said, if you can steal this radio, but it won't work. And so people stopped stealing my radio. We can sort of do the same thing with guns. You steal a gun, you got nothing because it won't work. We can make it so basically only the owner can really have access to the gun. And it's not that hard. It's not even 21st century technology. It's 20th century technology. And that would all really help a lot on the criminal side. We can do lots of things about gun accidents. I was at a meeting in the Public Health Association, and I was at a restaurant, and something fell on the floor. A person went to pick it up, and out of his pocket dropped a Derringer. He was a local. The Derringer hit the ground, bang, it went off, and 2 female delegates were hit and had to be raced.
It was loaded.
It was loaded, and we have guns in the United States where when you drop them on the ground, they can go off. And there's no need for that. We can have safety standards for guns.
The gun lobby says that responsible citizens can have guns. You cannot give guns to the criminals. So it's two groups, the good guys and the bad guys.
And unfortunately, in the United States, too often when they say that, that's a code word for racism. The bad guys are the blacks and the good guys are the whites. And that's not kosher, but that's sometimes implicit. And it's, of course, terrible and wrong. But, of course, people...
And the public health system, the public health approach looks at it in what ways?
In what way? It just says there's all different kinds of people. There are people who are pretty bad, there are people who are pretty good, and there's all kinds of people in the middle who can be pushed one way or the other. And what you want to do is basically for everybody, that the incredibly bad people you can't do anything with, you can't try to get them off the street, and that's good. But for everybody else, make it hard to make errors. Make it hard to behave inappropriately, and fewer people will behave inappropriately. If you want to reduce crime in the subway, you can have police all over, you can try to train everybody to be good citizens, whatever, and still there'll be crime. And what they did in the Washington, D.C. subway is they made it almost impossible, they made it very, very hard to commit crimes. And so they didn't change, the people in Washington aren't any better than the people in Boston or people in Atlanta or people in Chicago. But the crime rate on the subways in Washington, D.C. is about 25% as much. It's basically 3 to 4 times higher in these other old cities than it is in Washington, D.C., just because the subway system itself is different. They make it really hard to behave in it. If you make it really easy to steal a car, a lot of people steal cars. If you make it very difficult, our car theft rate in the United States has fallen a great deal. Huge, huge success. It's not because suddenly kids are better. It's because it's almost impossible to steal cars.
The gun lobby says that now they are blaming the culture, right?
Right.
Violent culture.
Right.
So they're blaming video games, gangster rap, Hollywood films.
Right.
That's where the problem is.
Yeah. Well, there's no question. We should do better in everything. I mean, you could blame poverty. Poverty is a big one, and we should do something. There's racism in the United States. We should improve racism. We have bad parents. We should improve parenting. There's no question we should do all those things. But we also should do something about guns. And while we know that we have a big gun problem, is we compare us to the other 25 high-income countries who are our peers.
They watch the same films, they play the same video games.
Video games, their kids, all the evidence is they have the same basically non-gun crime rates, the same non-gun violence rates. We're just an average country in all different ways except for guns. We have by far the weakest gun laws. We make it so easy for criminals to get guns, for terrorists to get guns, and not surprisingly, we have a gun problem.
How can community work, people in a local set, change things to change this climate? This fatalism that people have, oh, there's nothing we can do about it, it's hopeless.
Yes. I think, you know, one of the things why I wrote the book was to really emphasize to people is there are all these great success stories. And people understand analogies, I think, well, it's that we had success here, we had success here, we can have success here. Here's how they did it here. You can't just say you can do exactly the same thing, but there's all sort of different ways that people have approached problems. And it's, you know, it's sometimes it's only a few people who get other people excited and then can really make a difference. In the drunk driving area, it was sort of one woman who sort of stepped up and then helped create this huge movement with lots of people. So
Mothers
lots of people
helped.
Mothers Against Driving, and that really, really made a difference. Sometimes it's doctors. In some areas in the United States, we had this terrible problem about scalds, hot water scalds to children. And a few physicians, pediatricians, stepped up and figured out ways, how can we reduce this problem? And what they did was eventually just, that this was a law which basically said new hot water heaters had to be preset at a reasonable temperature rather than a high temperature. You can still go down and change the temperature whenever you want, but people don't. And so kids don't get scalded. And you can see in the numbers that we've saved so many kids from this horrible, horrible thing of scalding. Individuals can make a difference, and then really groups can make a difference. And that's why I wrote the book, just to say, hey, that this is something that people have already done in lots of areas, and it's really important to pick your area that you really care about and do something. But there's many lessons in the book, but one of them is that it's much harder than you think, and you have to be in it for the long run. And there's always people against you. It's just amazing to me that you can have some of these things. What we're all, you know, what these people are trying to do is save kids' eyes who are playing minor hockey. These 10-year-old kids, and let's ban high sticking. And no, there are people who want, no, I used the high stick and I got hit in the face and I'm fine. It's like, no. There's always people going to be against you. But typically, you're on the side of the angels, and you just have to fight and struggle and not give up. And you can make a difference because you can see, here's all these people who have made a difference. And here's, it's while we were sleeping, while I was sleeping, there have been people out there fighting for the public good and making my life safer and your life safer and your life safer. And so it makes me very, very optimistic. It makes me very happy to be in this field. And it's not always people who are trained in public health, but it's people who are doing things which we would call public health work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Excellent.
That's good.
Thank you.
quando um atirador ataca um lugar público e atira a esmo para fazer o maior número de vítimas. Aqui em Nova York é muito difícil ter uma arma, as leis de controle são muito rigorosas. Não conheço ninguém que tenha. Mas em outros lugares é fácil comprar uma arma. Acaba sendo o país com o maior número de armas de fogo em circulação. 300 milhões, uma para cada habitante, e algumas vão parar em mãos erradas. São centenas desses mass shootings a cada ano, uma epidemia. E é assim como uma epidemia que essa história é tratada por um dos maiores experts no assunto, o economista.
Prevention is about changing the environment.
That's right. It's exactly right. And I think blaming often makes it hard to do anything because you just blame, oh, it's their fault, we don't have to do anything. And what we're trying to do is forget blame, just try to prevent. Step back and think, how could you have prevented these things from happening?
It's like re-engineering.
That's right. And a lot of times that's the answer. A lot of times the way to make things better is to make the system. It could be an engineering system. In medicine, it's often make it very hard to give the wrong medication. Now we make it very easy. Yeah. And so not surprisingly,
David Hemenway, que eu fui entrevistar na Universidade de Harvard. Para ele, é um problema de saúde pública e por isso pode ser resolvido, assim como se fez cortando o uso do cigarro, reduzindo muito o número de mortos no trânsito, e por isso ele se diz otimista. Mas a cada novo massacre, a gente volta a perguntar por quê e até quando.
Yeah, I have to tell you, well, Brazil is very different from the US, but when I researched the issue, I found a lot of numbers, recent statistics for the US that in Brazil we don't have.
We have a very good data system across all deaths. So the vital statistics in the United States is excellent. It sort of says how many people we know, their age and gender, who die from cancer and heart disease and drownings and so forth. But it doesn't tell you anything about the circumstances. All you know is who died and what they died of. And what's really important for prevention is to figure out what were the circumstances so you can do something about it.
I would like the viewers to get the public health concept that it's not about blaming.
Oh my God, they're all shooting back and forth.
Eu vivo nos Estados Unidos há mais de 20 anos e me sinto muito seguro aqui. O número de homicídios aqui em Nova York e em outras cidades americanas é muitas vezes menor do que no Rio ou em São Paulo. Mas existe esse estranho paradoxo, difícil de entender até de traduzir, o que os americanos chamam de mass shootings, esses tiroteios em massa.
Look at that, just shooting back and forth.
Vámonos, 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 Celito.
Look at this.